Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Money Code. I am your host, Mark Nash, and I would like to first start off by thanking you for the opportunity to earn your business. And also, really, to talk to you about the concept of money. Most of you guys are tuning in because you want to know how to either make money or save money, but this show is really dedicated to our entrepreneurs. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're looking for ways to grow revenues, which is a fancy term for sales, manage and control your expenses, which is really more so of a tax concept than anything. We want to make sure you're taking advantage of all of the tax deductions that you're able to take advantage of. In addition to that, we want to make sure you're taking care of the ultimate goal, which is to maximize profit. So before we begin, I just want to cover some housekeeping. And my goal is really to talk no more than 15 minutes. So when you hear the buzzer sound, that's my alarm clock going off. I'm going to jump off screen, turn off that alarm real quick, and then I am going to just really just wrap up with some final thoughts. Now, for each one of the videos, I'm going to try to let you know what documents or what items you'll need for that particular video. So just to let you know, this is a lecture format. So for now, only thing you really need is pen and paper. So today's topic is really just an introduction. What I'm going to do is I'm going to really just talk about not necessarily what it means to be an entrepreneur, but I'm going to talk to you about just the overall concept of being in business. So with that said, let me simplify it for you. Okay, what you have here is you have a business person or business owner. I mean, that's this person right over here. Then you have the consumer. Now, I know for many of you guys, it seems pretty straightforward, but I want to stay with me. I think you'll understand what I'm getting at in a second. So what happens is you take a business owner or a founder or whatever you want to call them, a business owner, entrepreneur who has a product or service, and they want to sell that product or service to a willing and able buying consumer. Okay? Now, during this process, everything, and this is something you're going to hear me say a lot, everything starts off with a quality product or service. Now, I know you're like, well, Mark, out in the marketplace, people market crappy stuff all the time. If you're trying to market a crappy product or service, I apologize early, but this video is not for you. Because the reason why it's important is because you gotta have a quality product or quality service, because that's how you inherently create demand. And that's really what this is all about. Now, so let me backtrack for a second here. So you have the consumer and you have the seller, okay, or in this case, the buyer and the seller. And that's really what we're talking about. So as an entrepreneur with a quality product or service, you're trying to sell those items, once again, to a willing and able consumer. Because there's a lot of people who might be in the market for your particular product or service, but don't have the funds for it. Now, we'll talk about that in more detail later as we talk about the sales process and what it means to prospect, to qualify the buyer, to do the presentation after of course, you've gathered enough information. Then after you've done the presentation, make the recommendation and ask for the sale. I mean, so we're going to talk about that. And that's the reason why I keep saying a willing and able and eligible buyer. Now, the reason why that's important to you, when we look at the money component, because once again, I apologize, but you have the owner or entrepreneur over here, and you have the consumer over here, and your goal is to exchange product or service for money. Now, the reason why that's important, because the way you exchange those funds, whether it's cash, credit, whatever, those are going to be categorized into revenues and to expenses. Revenues is really just a fancy term for saying sales. So sales minus expenses equals your profit or your loss. So of course, if you're in a profit, you need to make sure you give Uncle Sam his cut. If you have a loss, then you need to make sure you deduct that against whatever your primary business is, or I shouldn't say primary business, whatever your 9-to-5 is. Now, we'll talk more about the balance sheet and what it is and what it isn't. We'll talk about the sales process. We'll talk about marketing. And essentially, I'm going to walk you through a business plan. So it doesn't matter what type of business you're in. It doesn't matter if you sell cars. It doesn't matter if you provide consulting services. There's going to be some strategies in here that's going to benefit you. Now, the only other item that I want to leave you with before we move on to the next item is that when we're talking about an income statement, revenues minus expenses equals your profit or loss, you need to understand why you are in business. Now, the reason why that's important is simple, because the strategy to start a business that's going to be your primary source of income is slightly, or I should say actually dramatically different than something that you would do just to supplement your income. So with that said, continue to tune in and I'll see you at the next video. Peace. This film is sponsored by God's Holistic Temple, a 501c3 nonprofit organization committed to supporting wellness in the community. This film is sponsored by Serene Professional Solutions, LLC, a consulting firm specializing in business consulting and tax preparation services.